Okay, so we've walked through the panel saw, how it works pretty quickly. The panel saw is less important than the table saw or the circular saw. We've walked through the parts of the circular saw and how it adjusts that table to get exactly what we want. I'm now going to cut this big piece of plywood here. Okay, this is just an example of what we might use this for. In the field, generally you would use this to cut big sheets of plywood like this. If you're doing like roofs or decking or floors or whatever it might be, that's a good time for using the circular saw. So what I need is to cut this strip off, and I need it to be straight. I need a straight board there. If I just take the circular saw as is and try to freehand a straight line across this board, I'm probably not going to get a very straight cut. Now, a lot of times you don't need a perfectly straight cut for something like this, but I'm going to show you guys a method that's pretty common for doing this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this board that I know is straight, and I'm going to clamp it onto the board here and then run my table saw or my circular saw along this board so I know that it's straight. Okay, I'm going to kind of create a fence with this board while I work. Okay, so the first thing I want to point out is that I've clamped my workpiece onto this table. So when I'm working, it doesn't move. I have a clamp here and one over there. I've also looked underneath, and I've made sure that I'm not going to hit the table here. So I'm going to make sure that when my blade comes through, it doesn't run into this table. All right, I got enough work hanging off here. And I've also secured 2 more clamps that I can use to put my fence on my table. All right, so what I'm going to do is clamp this sucker down like so. All right, now I've got a mark here and a mark on the other side that I'm using to line up so I know how wide this board's going to be. I'll get the width correct. Get my clamps on. All right, I'm making sure that my clamps are out of the way of the actual table saw. And now, here, I'll try to show you a good angle here. Check that out. Woo! Perfectly straight. All right, I should be able to get that piece off with no problem. All right, I'm going to try to get my circular saw over here and ready to go. So I've already made all my adjustments. My blade height is set. All right, my table is adjusted. I did that with the power cord out. We always make adjustments with the power cord out. Now I should be ready to cut. So the most important thing when you're doing this is both hands on both handles. And then you want to make sure that your table is flat on the workpiece. All right, so if I'm cutting like this or I'm cutting like that, I'm not going to get a straight cut. All right, as I'm doing this, you'll see, well, you might not be able to see underneath, but that guard will lift up. The guard will lift up and expose the blade enough to cut the wood. And I'm doing a really good job of staying flat on my fence. I'll try to show exactly what this looks like. All right, so you can see the edge of my table will just run all the way along that fence line to the end of the cut. I'm doing my best with the camera here. It's tough when you're by yourself. All right, here we go. So I'm going to make sure that my cord is out of the way as well. And I'm ready to start cutting. Here we go. Okay, look at that. Perfectly straight little board there. All right, looks really good. One thing I also want to point out is that you need to account for the distance between the actual blade, so here, and the actual fence. So if you look straight down on it, and I know this is like really not the greatest, you can see, man, how can I show this? You can see that the blade and the fence, or like the edge of the table, is about 2 inches there on mine. That's something that you'll just learn, you'll pick up over time, is that you have to adjust your fence that distance based on where your blade is and where the edge of the table is. So in mine, it's about 1.5 to 2 inches. I think it's 1.5 inches. So my mark was right there. I made a second mark about 1.5 inches away for me to put my fence on. All right, so that's the table saw. A lot of safety rules. I hope that you guys are able to take notes during these videos. Your quiz will be Friday. We'll have a discussion